HSBC has fallen 4.5% today on suspension of dividend for the fourth quarter. It is trading currently at 38.05 on the HANGSENG stock exchange in Hong Kong. Similar fall has been seen in Standard Chartered Bank. In fact, HSBC is now trading at values which were last seen at a time of the Great Recession in 2009. So substantial fall in HSBC because of suspension of dividend. You can see how the current coronavirus pandemic slowdown is now impacting businesses and stock prices to the extent that almost a full decade's gains are getting wiped out. So you could have just got out in 2009 and kept the money in bank in any certificate of deposit and earned much more money today rather than just hold for such a long period of time. So people are saying if you have a 5-year horizon, 7-year horizon, 10-year horizon, you will always do well. You will, but look at these glaring examples. After holding for 10 years, $38 on HSBC, same level as it was in 2009. Right now with 2020, you're held for the long run, 11 years, fantastic bank, superb franchise, global bank all over the world, same level as 2009, no improvement. So stocks need not necessarily be held over a long. You have to figure out when the disruptions in stock markets are going to arise and try to get out before that. Timing is very important. Just because there are inefficiencies of certain fund managers and investment professionals does not mean that you should be penalized. Michael Corbett of Citibank says that there is enough liquidity and extension of credit available so that Citibank's operations are not impacted. So far so good. Mike, I'm sure he knows his stuff very well, and let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that this continues. You never know, if this crisis goes into a new trajectory, then I guess there's only that much extension of credit that the US government, being a wealthy economy, they have extended new lines of credit to the small and medium businesses. Very wise step. But now let me tell you what's wrong with this argument also. Let's say you are a small business and you have received a new line of credit from the government. If there is, and then you are using it to sell goods, right? Either you're a trader or you're a manufacturer. If there is no demand, what will you do with that line of credit? So I think that itself is not the answer. You can run, but you cannot hide in general. That's what I'm trying to say. In India, the number of cases seem to be on the rise now. They are like 1834 cases of infections, 437 right because of some Nizamuddin congregation in Delhi. Now, I hope that this is an outlier and does not continue very long because if it spreads infections, then I think the whole purpose of social distancing as laid down by Prime Minister Narendra Modi could get lost. He's done a sensible move by putting the whole country into lockdown, but self-quarantine is good, but then people have to keep a watch over it, whether this is really happening or certain congregations are taking place in many parts. And I think of particular importance is a city like Mumbai, with a densely populated city. Dharavi is supposed to be the largest slum in Asia, and there has been one death reported there. So now there are concerns that this could spread into other pockets of that slum, and that can lead to a surge in cases. Let's wait and watch. Let's hope that things do not go that way. And there are many ways in which this can be curtailed, but the government has to take the steps. Now, countries such as China and Singapore had managed to curb this thing rather early, pandemic, and they were in fact using certain measures that this does not come back. However, you are seeing some cases of revival of this pandemic in Singapore and some in China. Now, what's going on is that many people who had gone overseas are now coming back to Singapore and China, and they are bringing the secondary infections back with them. Teo Yik Ying, he's the director of the NUS Saw Sui Hack School of Public Health based out of Singapore. And he believes that there could be a rebound in cases, that there could be a second wave of infections that may happen. The reason being that people who had gone abroad are coming back. This is also being witnessed in the state of Kerala in India. Now, if that happens, then the only way that the governments can solve is to completely close their borders once again. So Singapore and China will also close the borders. So America closes its borders. Everybody else closes its borders. And the question is, how long will you keep your borders closed? There will be no international travel, and you're closing the economy. You're closing the borders. How are you going to function? This is becoming like a game of chess. The moment you open your borders, people from outside come and infect your population. You keep it closed. How long will your economy function? How long will you allow that the businesses to be disrupted? How long can the lockdowns continue? There's a tremendous cost of these lockdowns. If the medical costs are very high, then the monetary costs, the economic costs are also very high. You can't keep people away from work for very long. That trade-off will, I think, it's a game of chess that will keep going on most of this year 2020, and is going to keep people at loggerheads with the governments. There will be pressures on the government to open, and this all could lead to civil strife, to agitations. People may not have the amount of money that they need to work their ways around. This all can be highly disruptive in nature. And I have mentioned that the oil prices could plummet further. So the oil producing economies can be badly impacted, and to the extent that some may be just selling it at even negative rate just to dispose of the oil, because closing an oil well is also expensive in nature. So all these many things are working in the background. There are certain soft measures which companies may use to be able to revive demand. I remember in 2009, in the backdrop of the Great Recession, General Motors had brought out a beautiful ad which called "Keep America Rolling," and this was had become suddenly very popular, and people who had lost interest in buying passenger cars began going to the showrooms and started having a look. So it's a wonderful ad. You may want to look at it. Keep America Rolling. That's a General Motors ad. So many ways will be thought of by the governments to revive demand, and there is also talks going on. US President Donald Trump is trying to pressurize the Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud to try and work out a deal with Russia's Vladimir Putin. And whether this works out, a lot of it really depends. But the efforts are there to try and work out some kind of a deal so that the US shale producers do not get into trouble. They have been suffering in the backdrop of falling oil prices. Shale is now being sold at price which is much below even their cost. So the sustenance of the shale oil producers has also got into big of trouble. And there is likelihood of oil prices even going negative, as the velocity of the current shock will breach the transportation networks. Storage facilities will not be sufficient. Demand destruction is so immense that even the storage facilities which are there in the world, which are ordinarily available, will not be available, although there is more than 1 billion barrels of storage capacity available all over the world. I'm talking of the physical capacity. So interesting, and the last thing is that the Chinese March, the PMI index had shown a rise in the manufacturing activity to 52, but this could be outlier, because if you compare month to month, then you have a low base effect. So the low base could have caused this rise, so you need not necessarily take this as a very good sign of return of production activity, manufacturing activity. In fact, now China is also seeing a loss of many orders, and to cap all this, America is now saying that even the data about the coronavirus which China had released was not true. There are doubts and aspersions being caused on that. So many moving parts in the world. Markets in Asia should be difficult. Anything over the Indian markets are closed today, but as the HANGSENG nears its closing, I think you could see a prop. London index after 2 hours of trading should be reasonably good. 1.5 hours to 2 hours of good trading, you can see positive trading on the FTSE, London FTSE. Other than that, and in fact, at a time of, if I'm talking of the London time today, I'm just taking London as a base because important stock markets such as India, the SENSEX and NIFTY are closed for trading. So you will find that within 2 hours of the opening of trading on the London FTSE, the markets will turn quite green over there, nicely positive. Even if it does not go into the green, much of the losses, earlier days losses, could be recouped. So 2 good hours of trading on London, and that will also correspond with good, nice trading, what I would call constructive trading on the German DAX and also on the French CAC. So Dow will, however, be weak today again, one more day. And I believe that a temporary bottom is in place, so need not be so badly concerned also. Next week, we could see more constructive trading across the world. And whereas these pockets of weaknesses will continue, yet I think more constructive times lie ahead. The markets all over the world are extremely oversold, and some rebound could be expected next week. Happy investing. Take care.